You're listening to Halftime with Phil Elson, Matty T, and Matt Jenkins.
Second and goal at the 7. 43 seconds to go. Ben gets the snap. He's back. He pumps. He scrambles around. Throws it back corner of the end zone. Santonio with a touchdown. Santonio. I don't know how he did it. Stowe turns and hands to Lewis. And Lewis off the left side. Walks into the end zone untouched from 11 yards out. Dion Lewis. And that for Dion is his 17th rushing touchdown of the season. And the Panthers have the lead. A 33-yard field goal for Hutchins to try to get the Panthers into a lead. Figure with a snap. It's high. It's down. The kick is on its way. That kick by Hutchins is long enough. It is up. It is good. The Panthers have the lead with 52 seconds left over Carolina.
One of the real treats getting to do a sports talk show is every once in a while you have a chance to interview one of your idols. And that's a chance we get to do right here with the longtime voice of Pitt basketball, Pitt football, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is the one and only Bill Hillgrove joining us here on Halftime. Winner of the Chris Schenkel Award and the Woody Durham Voice of College Sports Award. And all-around good guy, too. Bill, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on today. How are you?
You're more than welcome, but I hope I can get to work this fall.
No kidding. That's well said. And everybody that's listening to us right now agrees with you because we're all football fans. And I'm in pain dealing without baseball right now. I can't imagine what it would be like for all of us if there's no football, especially for someone like you that's called Pitt games for 46 years.
Yeah, it's tough, Phil. I miss baseball. I have never. I've done actually 2 Big East championship tournaments with Dick Rote, and that was a good 10, 12 years ago. But I really enjoy the sport. I follow the Pirates, and I really miss seeing them on the weekends. And here I am sitting in front of a TV watching reruns of Magnum P.I. and Murder, She Wrote, and I said, "What's wrong with this scene?"
Yeah, it's not the stuff that we would used to be doing, but I think there might be some things happening in the near future where we might start to have some more confidence of a thought of a football season coming in, which would be your 47th season calling Pitt football. I'm not quite sure where to start sometimes because one of the things I've tried to teach my listeners every once in a while in Arkansas is you don't realize the great players that have come through the University of Pittsburgh. You've called games for 6 NFL Hall of Famers, and there's at least 2 more on the way.
It's absolutely incredible. And this will be my 27th year of Steelers, and I've been privileged to do 4 Super Bowls. And not a lot of announcers can make that claim. And it's a blessing, especially to be able to do it in my hometown. I never had to leave. Maybe that'll be the title of my book. I never had to leave. It's off the charts. It's mind-boggling.
I love the idea of I never had to leave. I want to ask about what you remember from Tony Dorsett's career at Pitt. And it's difficult to center in on one thing, but I'd read where you had trouble getting through the call when he set the NCAA rushing record in 1976. This is the career rushing record. What do you remember from that call and the feelings that you were experiencing watching Tony Dorsett?
It was emotional because of the venue, Navy Marine Corps Stadium. And, the Navy never fires that cannon for anybody except the mids. Well, he gets into the end zone, all of a sudden the Navy cannon goes off. I take note of that. And then all of a sudden I am overcome with emotion. Tears streaming down my cheeks. And I'm kind of looking to my color man, Johnny Sauer. Come on, John, bail me out. Yep, tears streaming down his cheeks. And it's a realization. You're looking at a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. And that's exactly what Tony was. And fittingly, he did it in front of the brigade of midshipmen. The whole brigade doffed their caps. His mom and dad got out of the stands and, walked around the circumference of the field. And it was so emotional. I just can't, I feel bad about being speechless for one of the few times in my life. Yeah. But the emotion just got to me.
Does Dorsett get his due as one of the great running backs, not just in NFL history, but NCAA history? I ask that because I think as a society, a lot of us suffer from recency bias. But I think Dorsett's on the short list.
Yeah, I've often maintained he's the best college back I ever saw. The best back I ever saw was Jim Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He was absolutely incredible. He'd get tackled and limp back to the huddle, back ready to go again. He was tough to bring down. He was fast. He had a mean streak in him. He wanted to punish anybody who tried to tackle him. Brown was the best. But in college ranks, Dorsett was the best. And I still call him Dorset because that's what I did for the 3 years it was my privilege to call his games.
Speaking to the voice of the Pitt Panthers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bill Hillgrove. Bill, I'm a young broadcaster myself, and I love to hear from, like, I've talked to Phil about this and different people here in Arkansas. How did you get your start in broadcasting games, maybe, like, before you got to Pittsburgh? Like, where did you get your start?
Well, I never had to leave. I was a graduate of Duquesne University. I worked at a radio station from my sophomore year to my senior year. They didn't do much sports. It was one of those good music stations. But it gave me a chance to cut my teeth and also pay the tuition for the last 3 years of my career. I stayed on with that station until 1967, and finally for the ABC station WTAE-TV, I passed my fourth audition and was hired on April 1st, 1967, as a booth announcer. Now, that's an archaic term. They don't have such things anymore because everything is digital. But in those days, you had a shift, and my booth announcer shift was the late night shift when I would get to do maybe the tag of 2 commercials during $1 Million Movie. And frankly, after a couple of months of that, I was bored, and the CFO called me and said, Bill, they want to make a change. The radio station's changing formats, going from elevator music to middle of the road. They're looking for a nighttime disc jockey. Would you be interested? I said, I'll jump at that. And I knew I took a pay cut from television staff, scale to the radio side, but they wanted to do heavy on sports scores. So here I am at night, sitting between the tables, reading the labels and playing middle-of-the-road music, but I had a chance to do sports scores, and I think it made management aware that I was interested in sports. So a couple of years later, the program director called me and said, have you done play-by-play? And I said, yes, I did some at Duquesne, a lot of Duquesne University basketball, but a little bit of high school football. And so, yes, I can answer that question to the affirmative. I have done play-by-play. They said, good. We're trying to get the games away from another station. Pitt wants full-time basketball. Ed Conway, who was the voice of the Panther football team from that moment forward, was a TV guy and couldn't travel and do the basketball as well. So they said, you do basketball, and you help Ed in the booth for football. And that's how I really got to put my sports hat back on.
That's awesome. And you've eventually got into obviously Pitt's football and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to focus on the Steelers just for a second. I mean, like you just mentioned, you've called 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers. Was there a group or a team with the Steelers that just you recall the most as just being the most fun to call and just fun to be around? Was there a group of those 4 Super Bowl teams? Was there a group that was the most fun to be around?
Gosh, I think I tend to be somebody who leans on recent past. And Super Bowl 43 with Ben throwing that touchdown pass to Santonio Holmes that you heard. Larry Fitzgerald scores. Arizona's ahead. Ben has 2 minutes and change. He starts deep in his own end and gets a holding call. Now he's even deeper. And every pass he threw on that drive was on a Steelers player's hands. Santonio should have had the one previous on the left side of the end zone, but fortunately he did the toe dance and helped them to win Super Bowl 43. That to me, that group is my favorite because they're the most recent. I love the Bus. He was a terrific guy, and he gives me somewhat of the credit for his nickname. We were playing a preseason game in '96 in Green Bay, and we're in the lounge of the hotel there, and I hear one of our coaches refer to Jerome as, okay, Bus, yeah, okay, and all right, thanks, Bus. And so when Jerome left, I said to the coach, I said, what's the Bus thing? He goes, oh, that's what we called him at Notre Dame. Well, then I gave it to my broadcast partner, Myron Cope, and I said, Myron, his nickname is the Bus. Well, that's all you had to do with Cope, the inventor of the terrible towel, was give him something like that to sink his teeth into, and the next thing you know, the bus was born. And, it's a nickname that has stuck and served Jerome well. He's one heck of a guy.
I'm glad you brought Cope up, Bill, and I want to do another 5 minutes with you here. I've been trying to explain to listeners what Cope was like. There was nobody like him. I just have one little thing here to play, and I want to get your thoughts on just on what it was like to do games or just have a relationship with really a unique person in Myron Cope.
Tony Siri goes up. I am going to describe him as looking like the guy they send around to break your legs when you haven't paid your bookie. And he does. That's what he looks like.
That to me typified Myron. You never knew what he was going to say, how it was going to come out, but it usually made you chuckle.
It wasn't an act. That was Myron. That was Cope. He had that pair of glasses that saw the world funny. And, his entertainment quality was unmatched, his preparation unmatched. He'd always bring I'd say about an inch-high stack of index cards into the booth of all preparation. And he'd rarely get halfway through it. And I said, Myron, why do you have that much preparation? He says, Billy, every once in a while you get a clunker, a bad game, and I still have to keep the listeners. And, that was Cope. He was a treasure, one in a million. I miss him every day.
Yeah, I miss listening to him, though. I really still love listening to you and Wolf and Tunch do the games together. I wanted to add, I found this funny. The first year that you were doing Steelers games, you weren't worried about calling the Steelers the Panthers or vice versa, but you were worried about calling the guy who had the ball as the featured running back for either team, because both Curtis Martin for the Panthers and Barry Foster, former Razorback for the Steelers, wore number 29 in 1994.
I was concerned about that, Phil, and fortunately it never happened. If it did, we caught it and covered it up and moved on quickly so that it wasn't noticeable. But that was my biggest fear. Now here, Curtis is in the NFL Hall of Fame. He's going into Pitt's Hall of Fame this fall. He was just a special back, and I was worried about that. Although their styles were totally different.
Yeah,
and you know what, Ray Scott, and he's always been my idol and a mentor to me. And he's the one that said, Billy, he said, go to practices and watch the way these people move, because, well, of course, in those days there were mud games. We don't see those anymore. But if you have a mud game or you have the number obscured for whatever reason, now it's probably dreadlocks obscuring the numbers. By the way the guy moves is how you should be able to tell who's got the football. And that was valuable advice from one of the greats.
Well, and you passed that advice on to me when I started calling football games. The last thing I want to touch on, because it's an Arkansas connection, Jimmy Johnson, his last assistant coaching position before he became a head coach at Oklahoma State was coaching linebackers at Pitt. What do you remember about Jimmy Johnson as an assistant coach? And when you watched him, did you think that this would be somebody that would have major success in both college and the NFL as a head coach?
I think he exuded that. He exuded the confidence. And, he was a coach with great energy, great ability to relate to the players. And so, you could see that happening. There's one more other Arkansas connection I'd like to mention.
Oh, there is?
Because it's a Pittsburgh connection.
Okay.
Harry Lighthorse Jones. 1965, he led the nation in yards per attempt, was the number one pick of the Philadelphia Eagles, but was Tony Dorsett's coach when Tony was a freshman at Pitt.
Very good.
Interesting.
Very good. That's great stuff. Bill, this is
and the first Arkansas Razorback to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. How about that?
See, here he is. He's teaching us things about our own team.
What team we cover.
That's why you're the best, Bill. That's why you're the best. I really appreciate you joining us, and for the advice that you've helped me with when I was calling football games, and the friendship that you have with my dad, and the time that you've given to me with advice for my broadcasting career. I feel it's worth publicly thanking you on this show, too. Thanks so much, and have a great summer.
You're welcome, Phil, and your dad's a gem. Quite a pitcher, and certainly a heck of an actor as well.
Wow, and you're quite a broadcaster. I can't wait to hear you do the Panthers and the Steelers again. Take care, Bill.
Let's hope so.
Absolutely. That's Bill Hillgrove. He's the one and only. 51 seasons of Pitt basketball, 46 seasons of Pitt football, and next season will be his 27th as the voice of the Steelers.
Doesn't get any better than him almost.
Nobody like him. And you don't even have to say his name in this city. His voice, they know exactly who it is.